What is up? Welcome back to another PFF podcast. I'm Mike Renner, joined as always by Sam Monson. And Sam, we have, after some technical difficulties yesterday, we have another rankings for the people. How excited are we to bring this to them?
Well, the rankings are one thing, but I think everybody is excited to get to the moment we're all waiting for, which is Mike reading out the list of all 32 teams. That's really the only reason we're doing these podcasts anymore.
So this is the last time you guys will have to hear me list out 32 teams. Next week, we'll get into some preview stuff for the season, but these are our secondary rankings on the season, ranking cornerbacks and safeties, the best units in the NFL.
List music.
Cue the music. Number 1, the New York Giants. Number 2, the Patriots. 3, Seahawks. 4, Broncos. 5, Falcons. 6, Jaguars. 7, Ravens. 8, Vikings. 9, Chargers. 10, Chiefs. 11, Cardinals. 12, Steelers. 13, Texans. 14, Raiders. 15, Bucks. 16, Packers. 17, Lions. 18, Bengals. 19, Dolphins. 20, Titans. 21, Redskins. 22, Panthers. 23, Cowboys. 24, Rams. 25, 49ers. 26, Bills. 27 Browns, 28 Jets, 29 Colts, 30 Bears, 31 Saints, and 32 the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that was my quickest one yet. Also my best one yet. And that's, like I said, last time you guys will have to hear me do this.
Yeah, it felt like you were really just hitting your stride now. I think we should figure out a way of working this into the podcast schedule going forward. Some kind of Renner's list every week where you just get to read out teams.
God, no. All right. And let's start right at the top with the New York Giants. People may be surprised to see them at the number 1 spot on our list. A lot of people, I'd say, think of the Denver Broncos as the class of league in terms of, secondaries. But this evaluated, like I said, safeties and corners, went 5 guys deep in terms of adding the nickel corner in there too into these rankings. So what makes the Giants so special, Sam?
They're good across the board. You go 3 corners deep, you've got 2 well-matched or well-complemented safeties. You got the strong safety, the free safety. I think they may even have almost 2.5, 3 safeties, a guy that could actually come off the bench and be a decent free safety as well. And there's no other team, I don't think, that you can say that about. There's teams that I think have a good starting 4, but as soon as you have to go into the bench, you've got some problems. Denver, I think, have got the corners, although Bradley Roby had a bit of a downswing last year, but the safeties aren't nearly as good. So, what the Giants did last year in moving Landon Collins to strong safety completely transformed him. It made him into the playmaking safety that he was supposed to be coming out of Alabama, just became an absolute force in and around the box, had more defensive stops than any other safety, racked up 9 total pressures on the blitz. I think had a reasonable number of interceptions as well because they were able to use him in man coverage on tight ends and that kind of thing underneath, just not in those deep zones where he looked a little bit lost as a rookie. And really the only problem on paper there would be if you could find a guy that was capable of playing deep down the field as that free safety to let him do that. And they were able to get that with a guy like Andrew Adams, who played really ridiculously well coming in as an undrafted free agent. The job was supposed to go to Darian Thompson, who got injured, and open up the door for Andrew Adams, who played really well off the bench. So I think it's just the most complete unit. It's the only team in the league, I think, where you can go 7 or 8 guys deep and not have a problem.
It's crazy to me how the teams like the Giants and the Broncos have legitimately shown the blueprint for how to field a good pass defense, how to field a good, which in turn is a good defense in today's NFL. You sign corners that are good. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, Janoris Jenkins for the Broncos, signing Aqib Talib. You sign corners that are good. If you have a talented guy, sign them. And then don't be afraid to also spend a first-round pick on a guy once you have those 2 corners in place. You need 3 cornerbacks. We saw the Giants do it with Eli Apple. He was fairly good as a rookie, showed enough promise to where he could come on even stronger in year 2. And we saw the Broncos do it with Bradley Roby. Don't be afraid to draft another cornerback in the first round just because you have 2. That cornerback is on the field for the most important downs, third downs, nickel situations, and he gets targeted a lot. He's a very important player. I still cannot believe that more teams around the league are just unwilling to address that third cornerback position with either investing with a draft pick or with high dollar value in contracts.
I don't think it's even just a third cornerback thing. It's almost like the league is still kind of calculating its roster management based on base defense, where they haven't. Everyone kind of understands that nickel has become the new base in terms of the amount of snaps you're playing, 5+ defensive backs and all that kind of thing. But it doesn't seem to have actually filtered through to strategy and roster management, and the fact that when you used to only need 2 corners, you now need 3. You can't get away with just 2. And same even with pass rushers. You now need more of them, because when you go to those sub packages, you're not just rushing with 2 edge guys. You need a third pass rushing force at least from somewhere. So it's like the teams are still one man down in all of these areas where nickel has become more important.
Yeah, I kind of jabbed you on Twitter yesterday about how you said the Panthers, letting Josh Norman go didn't look that bad because James Bradbury was good behind him. Well, having 2 cornerbacks, 3 cornerbacks that are talented never really hurt anybody. The teams that have 3 good cornerbacks almost always seem to be top 5 defenses in the league now. That's just how it goes.
That's true. My issue was more that, Josh Norman clearly wanted to have a monster blockbuster contract. Carolina had only seen elite play from him for 1 season. I could understand why you didn't want to commit the farm to that guy based off 1 year, at which point it didn't look like a deal was going to get done, and you've basically just traded one guy for the other. So, yeah, in theory you want them both, but it didn't look like it was going to happen for them to retain Josh Norman whatever happens. And in terms of a kind of swap, they haven't done badly out of that deal.
Yeah, okay. We'll just agree to disagree. Where are they coming in the list? Number 22. So yeah, they haven't done well though out of the deal.
Okay, but take out Bradbury and put Norman in there. Where would they have gone? Here's a question for you though: what is Janoris Jenkins going to look like next year? Because you were a little Captain Hindsight there with sign a player you knew was good, and we didn't really know Janoris was that good. We knew he was talented, but never actually.
He had always had a penchant for getting beat deep. He was a risk taker to some degree early in his career with the Rams. Now, can some of that, coaching, was he coached to be aggressive there? Yeah, I think to some degree that was, but he always flashed ability. So, and he was never, he was always an above average cornerback with them. So at that point, while he had a career year with the Giants, you were signing a player that you knew was an upgrade, in my opinion. So
I think even that is stretching it. His career baseline was probably just about average before last year, and that's having gotten better almost every single year. But if you look at his numbers, his career average in terms of completion percentage in his coverage is still well over 60%, and that's after having a year with the Giants where he posted one of 50% dead, 86 targets, 43 receptions. His passer rating allowed into his coverage was over 114 2 years, 93.8 the year before he joined the Giants, and then all the way down at 65.3. So like a 30-point drop from the best of his most recent 3 seasons. Like, it's a massive departure.
I'm not debating too much that he had a career year and that it was by far his best, but I do think there was obvious talent there. Now, I thought they overpaid when they signed him, but again, you're paying for guys can get the job done to some degree in the NFL. I just think that's valuable, and not a lot of teams willing to do that.
But do you think 2016 is the guy we're going to see in 2017, or are we going to see him go somewhere in the middle?
Probably somewhere in the middle. There's obviously regression happens. A career year like that's hard to repeat, so we'll see somewhere in the middle.
Because that's my big question as well with the Denver Broncos. And, everyone just counts Aqib Talib as an elite shutdown corner because he was last season. One of the only cornerbacks to go through the entire season without allowing a single touchdown into his coverage. I think really the only starting corner where that's the case. I think a few guys did it who didn't really play every down. Allowed passer rating into his coverage under 50, which is pretty ridiculous. Wasn't beaten for a reception over 26 yards all season long, which is, again, obscene. I mean, Aqib Talib last season was ridiculous, an absolute shutdown force, and he's always had the ability to do that. He's one of those prototypical size corners, 6'1", over 200 pounds. He's always looked like he has the talent to do that, and you've seen it every now and again, for a game or two, but he's never done it for a whole season. I mean, that again is by far his best, the best season of his career. And particularly over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, there have been some pretty average seasons in there. I don't know that we're going to see that guy again in 2017.
It's still, though, it's another guy to where, yeah, he might not reach that elite level of play, but we've seen enough from to where he's going to be above average. You know, he's an above average corner, a quality starting cornerback on your team. So even if he doesn't reach that, I'm not too worried, I'll say.
No, I wouldn't be worried, but I think it makes a big difference if you take a guy who was a legitimate number one shutdown corner type guy and you put him back to, say, 2015 Aqib Talib, where he's okay and he's going to have some good games in there, but that guy, you know, is not making the difference of your defense. You know, he's not the guy that you can put on a number one receiver and know that he's going to shut him down game in, game out. I mean, he allowed more than double the receiving yardage in 2015 than he did in 2016.
To be fair, though, how many cornerbacks year on year have been, you know, consistently elite level play? Even guys like Tyrann Mathieu, after he got hurt, was not the same. Patrick Peterson had the year after his diabetes diagnosis where he just got torched by everyone, absolutely owned by Julio Jones. Came back, bounced back with some strong seasons, but
it's really
there aren't many guys at cornerback. Richard Sherman, maybe Chris Harris Jr. in there too.
Yeah,
in terms of what he's done, but it's just hard to not get beaten in the NFL at times. And when you get beaten deep, and then that's, you know, that one getting beat deep once in a game is all of a sudden you had a bad game. Yeah. So it's just the life of a cornerback in the NFL.
That whole cornerback debate and the Richard Sherman thing, the one thing he probably doesn't get enough credit for is consistency. I mean, he's the one guy that really hasn't had a bad season since he came into the league. You know, his comparative bad season. Last year might have been the worst season of his career, and he was still good. You know what I mean? I mean, he had a couple of tough games where, you know, he got a bit abused by Brandon Marshall against the Jets. Mike Evans did him for a touchdown, I think. He had a couple of rough games in there, but he was still good. I mean, like, he didn't allow much over the course of that season, and that's like the career low mark for him.
Yeah, that's what I said. So cornerbacks, there is a fluctuation. I'm not too worried if a guy, you know, is at the high point of it now. It's still usually you don't have that level of play that we saw from Janoris Jenkins and Aqib Talib if you're just an average guy. You don't get lucky and play like that one season. So I'm not too worried about those guys in 2017. Let's talk about, though, our list here. So again, if you didn't hear it, go back to the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Who do you think is too high, Sam, on this list? Who do we overrate in terms of their secondary?
It's going to be interesting to see how this Seattle defense plays now that they, again, are in kind of flux opposite Richard Sherman. It seems to be this perpetual state of they haven't been able to nail down this second cornerback spot opposite him. Richard Sherman, obviously, we said, has been incredibly consistent. Earl Thomas is this phenomenal deep-lying free safety, a guy that has range like almost nobody else, can change the game schematically like no one else. But those guys have started to get nicked up. You know, Thomas broke his leg. I guess that's not necessarily a kind of predictive thing. Cam Chancellor has missed time. I don't know. You know, if you lose either one of those guys, we've seen it's a significant blow to this defense. Sherman obviously will hold up his side, but what is the other side going to look like? Deshaun Shedd is still recovering from an injury. Jeremy Lane is supposedly the favorite to get that starting job. That doesn't strike me as a particularly positive thing. I'm a big fan of Shaquille Griffin, but even if he starts year one corners tend to get pretty much picked on. I think this defense, if everybody's healthy and everything goes right, will still be one of the best out there, but it has the potential to be a little bit more shaky than it has in the past.
Yes, I can get on board with that in terms of, one, like you mentioned, Earl Thomas is 28, and that's the youngest of that big three in terms of Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman. So they're not getting any younger. They're not improving at this point. You think they've reached their peak. They might be on the downslope of their career, or, you know, basically at their peak at the moment. So they're not getting any better. And then two, how long have we seen, you know, one scheme last and not get figured out to some degree in the NFL. All schemes, there's always turnover. We saw in the mid 2000s with the Bears and the Buccaneers, Tampa 2 was everything. They were running at every snap like the Seahawks were with cover 3, and then all of a sudden that got figured out. Teams over time, we've just seen the fluctuation of schemes. Teams start to figure stuff out. Now with everyone and their mother starting to play that Seattle cover 3, teams have more incentive. Offensive coordinators have this more incentive to figure out different ways to beat that. And so I just think it's already hit its peak in terms of effectiveness. That's on the downslope. Them age-wise, they're on the downslope. So there's a lot of arrows pointing to a continued drop-off that we sort of saw at the end of last season.
I wonder if, I've never actually looked at this, but I wonder if when schemes have been around the league for a while and have been really successful, and then, like you say, they reach a point where they start to get figured out and suddenly they're not in vogue anymore. I wonder if that correlates with the length of time it takes for the coaching tree of that particular that particular scheme to kind of start to disseminate across the NFL. Because I think the thing about the Seahawks defense is, it's not just this cover 3 scheme. I think we talked about this last week, that it's more sophisticated than just running cover 3 every single snap, the way some people seem to think it is. They've got a lot of man stuff in there. They've got a lot of matchup coverages. There's a lot of very clever and sophisticated things in there. What screws them up is if a team knows the rules, knows the kind of the specific quirks of that defense, and basically runs something specifically designed to screw them up because of what they know the rules in that defense are. So what I'm thinking of specifically is when they played Atlanta and they just knew the rules of that defense. So they schemed a complete coverage bust against the defense because they knew how to do that. They knew what would get Richard Sherman to stick on his man and basically leave Levine Toilolo.
Toilolo. Yeah.
There you go. I missed a syllable in there. Toilolo. Leave him clean down the sideline for a touchdown. So, and it's one of those where you look at it and you say, well, whose coverage bust was that? And it really wasn't anybody's. It was just the scheme. They just understood how to create that bust in the scheme. Now, if you have 3 or 4 guys in the league who know how to do that because they were in that system, suddenly you've got problems because your once infallible system now has a bunch of holes in it that other people know how to exploit.
Yes, that's kind of what I was getting at. And I actually saw it for all the flack Chip Kelly got about his stale scheme. He forced some coverage busts against the Seahawks. They weren't really able to take advantage of them as well, but he did some things that really gave that defense trouble. So I do think to some degree they will be, I don't want to say figured out, but that sort of schematic advantage that they've always had in terms of perfect scheme matching up with the talent might not quite be at the peak. It's reached its peak already. It's on the downslope.
I think generally we're seeing more coverage busts from that defense than we've seen in the past, which is probably related to exactly what we're talking about.
I can get on board with them being a little high. Number 3 overall, ahead of Denver. I would definitely take Denver secondary before them at this point. I will say the team I thought was too high, and this one seems obvious to me. It's the Green Bay Packers at 16. Throw on any quarter of that Falcons NFC Championship game, and I don't see how you could. I get that they have 2 talented safeties, Clinton Dix and Morgan Burnett are, those are good players in the back end. The safety can only do so much for you though in coverage. A safety can't, guard a number 1 receiver man to man. He can only help a little over the top. He can only provide a safety blanket. You need the corners to execute it. They don't have the corners. Green Bay does not have the corners at this point. If we're just ranking corners, they're in the bottom 5 of the NFL. And so to put them at 16 overall in this, what are we thinking?
Well, one thing is, you say that throwing any bit of that game against Atlanta, there's no way that Ladarius Gunter is going to be thrown out there as like your number 1 corner.
Fair.
One-on-one against Julio Jones. That was ridiculous on the face of it. And I posted a tweet at the time when it happened.
Your viral one.
Yeah, the missing persons tweet. It was horrendous. Julio Jones just sent Darius Gunter running blindly into the middle of the field as he cut to the outside, completely unbeknownst to Gunter, who just carried on running, looking for the ball. That was horrendous. I think Green Bay's corners are better than they showed last year. They obviously all took a massive step back regressed, looked horrendous, collectively played terribly, was a disaster. But I think there's talent in Rollins. I think there's some talent in Demarius Randall. They can't play worse than they did last year.
I was going to say, I would like to think that Demarius Randall was hurt with just watching him play but it was more than that. He just, out of any corner I saw last year, was completely unwilling to jump a route. Not even jump a route, just react to a route until he knew it was 100%. Like, he was terrified of getting double moved, it seemed like. Like, he lived in pure fear, which is not how I want my cornerbacks to play.
And they've kind of attacked him in the draft. A guy like Kevin King, I think, I mean, you could put him out there now, and I would be amazed if he did worse than Gunter did against Julio Jones. He has the ability. He's the one guy that I was looking at in this draft class who reminded me of Richard Sherman, just in terms of the way they play and having a wingspan that's just so stupidly big you can't fit the ball over him. Deep down the field, there's just no space. So I could see him getting on the field quickly and putting Gunter to a number 4 cornerback spot, at which point things are looking better,
No, I do think they'll improve. I don't think they'll be as bad as they were in that game, but 16, you're putting them over some teams with, proven secondaries to some degree, a little more proven. So
that's fair.
I just think it's too high.
Yeah.
All right. That's all right. Other side of the coin here. Who on this list is too low in your mind?
I think that the Tennessee Titans defense, the coverage scheme there, has a chance to get a lot better quickly.
Okay.
It's a real kind of projection under the radar one, because that defense in coverage was horrendous last year, and they've actually been ranked relatively high in this.
I would say we have them 20th, and they were worse than that last year.
Oh yeah, they were way worse than that this year. So I'm already projecting a fairly big upswing, but I think they have this ability to really jump this. When you look at the players they've added, they've kind of added some guys to solidify the scheme, but also, again, there's another guy that I expect to have a big step forward, is the deep safety, whose name is completely escaping me at the moment.
Kevin Byard.
Yes, Kevin Byard, who was the one guy that season. We've been talking for ages about how we're looking for this one deep-lying free safety, a guy that can play the middle of the field, make those Earl Thomas plays. And so far, it's basically just been Earl Thomas. This year, I think I'm completely spacing on people. Malik Hooker is the guy that's going to be able to do that. I think he has that kind of deep-lying ball skills and range and all that kind of stuff. Kevin Byard doesn't have that, but he was the closest guy in that draft class, I think, to that. I think he's a guy that can play the middle of the field, can make some kind of rangy, deep plays. When you add in Jonathan Cyprien as their solid box safety, he was phenomenal when they moved him in up towards the line of scrimmage. Was a disaster deep off the line. But now I think when you add in that combination and you've got them balanced like that, with Byard as your deep safety, Cyprien as your box guy, Logan Ryan is a solid corner, if not spectacular. And then it's all going to kind of come down to what Adoree Jackson can do.
I can get on board with the fact that they'll have better results this year. They sort of low-key ran more man coverage last year than any other team in the NFL. Almost 55% of their snaps, they ran man coverage. And any defensive coordinator will tell you, yeah, I would love to run man coverage as much as possible, but you have to have the horses to run it. You can't just play man coverage and expect good results if you have a terrible group of cornerbacks. And that's what they had last year. They didn't have a good cornerback among the group. They cut Parrish Cox in the middle of the season. Jason McCourty was nowhere near the level we've seen from him early on in his career. They just didn't have the guys to play man coverage, yet they kept doing it. And obviously the results, not ideal. You gave up a ton of yards on the back end. Not a good secondary. If you have sort of the pieces now, if Logan Ryan can do that, if Adoree Jackson, finally focusing on football, can be, come in and be successful his rookie year, similar to someone like a Ronald Darby did in the man coverage scheme, they could have much better results. I'm still holding off because Logan Ryan seems like a very, very typical, once he leaves New England.
That's entirely possible, yeah.
He's nothing type of guy.
They also get the Kalen Reed bump, though.
Yeah, no, I was just waiting the whole time. I can't believe it took this long. It's like, all right, mention Kalen Reed as their new number one cornerback. Your boy.
Love Kalen Reed. This is his year. He's going to get on the field this time.
I was talking with, I may have told the story before on the podcast, but last year we were at the training camp tour in Tennessee for the Titans, talking with John Robinson on the sidelines, and Kalen Reed got a pick in practice while we're talking to him. I'm like, hey, that was Kalen Reed. We loved him. So did you guys, right? And he's like, we loved him so much, we made him the last pick of the draft. So I don't think they loved him as much as you did, Sam, but they still picked him, and he still could be good. And he did have that pick in their training camp. So,
guy's money.
Fingers crossed.
14 whole snaps last year, 1 tackle. This is his year, though. We're going to increase that snap count by at least 10.
I'd hope tenfold for your sake, but yeah, 10. All right, I thought the team that was too low on this list was all the way down near the bottom. The New Orleans Saints have to be better this year, right? They have to be better. They drafted Marshawn Lattimore, my favorite cornerback in the draft. Got him absolute steal, one of my favorite picks in the draft. They get back Delvin Breaux fully healthy now for the full season. He was injured throughout the year last year, came back at the end, but he was great his first year, not technically his rookie year, but his first year in the NFL with the Saints. And get back PJ Williams as well, a former third-round pick. And then their safeties aren't bad, in my opinion. Vaccaro, Bell, Raphael Bush, not awful there on the back end. Also drafted Marcus Williams in the second round. They just have to be better than the 31st secondary in the NFL. I just think things have to sort of turn around for them at some point.
There is a lot of talent there. They've got this perpetual thing of they always look so much better on paper than they end up showing. Like not just
it's because they signed
the entire
free
defense.
agents. Yeah, they signed 2 free agents, but they don't have anyone to replace it. They just don't draft well at all, it seems like, in the later round. They just have no one to fill in.
Seem to turn up and just disappear and die. It's like you get quality, almost certain sure thing, players rock up in New Orleans.
Was just awful.
And then just disappear and become horrendous. And then any guy you do get that shows a huge amount of talent, like Vaccaro or Delvin Breaux, next year it's gone. Like, it doesn't last for more than a year. I mean, Delvin Breaux is a great example. He could be anything this year. We could see pretty much any level of play from Breaux.
I had to laugh though. Last year they fired Rob Ryan. I thought, okay, they're finally going to go to more of maybe a ball control defense. Just put a cap on it. Don't just try not to give up as many big plays. They blitzed more last year than they did the year before. Going through some of their coverages last year were unbelievable what they were asking guys to do. They were no less aggressive than when they had Rob Ryan. That defense was – they just didn't have, again, the talent to blitz as much as they did, yet they blitzed more than any other team in the NFL. So like I said, if they can just not do that for 1 year, not have a crazy looking defense 1 year, they might get some good results on the back end. I don't know.
There's definitely
just
the
a thought
there. Yeah, there's definitely the talent to do that. I could see them easily making a much better fist of it.
Yeah, 31. I wouldn't take the Bears, Colts, Jets, or even the Browns secondary over them at this point. So bump them up a little bit. We'll see. All right, let's talk about a little off season. Keep it moving to who got the best over the offseason. Which of these secondaries really, from our last end-of-year rankings to right now, who's made the most improvements, and who's, I always struggle with how to word this, who's made the least improvements? Who's gotten worse, the most worse? So, Sam, in your opinion, who got best over the course of the offseason?
It has to be the Patriots.
Has to be the Patriots. That wasn't even one of the teams I listed. I put 2 teams down, so I guess it doesn't actually have to be the Patriots.
It clearly does. They added Stephon Gilmore. I'm more to the point, well, the big thing, though, is that they kept Malcolm Butler. If they had just swapped Butler for Gilmore, they'd have got worse. But they managed to add Stephon Gilmore, who strikes me as like the anti-Logan Ryan. He seems like the kind of guy that will actually play better in New England now that he's kind of got
free.
Yeah, like free of that defense, has a scheme around him that knows what it's doing and is well organized and well defined and all this kind of stuff. Gilmore could easily go back to he could have a career year next year, which would put him in an elite corner kind of category that people have, I think, said he's been in before, but I don't know if he ever really has. Malcolm Butler is genuinely on the cusp of being one of the game's best cornerbacks, which kind of flies a little bit under the radar. And then you've got McCourty on the back end. You've got the guys they've already had there. But just adding Gilmore to that group, I think, turns them into a phenomenal secondary.
No, I do think they got better. Obviously, swapping Gilmore for Ryan is definitely a win in my book. I just think other teams got better. Other teams added more pieces. You look at what Jacksonville did to their secondary in terms of adding Barry Church, adding A.J. Boye. That, to me, is probably a little more. And you also factor in the fact that Jalen Ramsey, from year 1 to year 2, I expect some sort of leap there. I expect he'll, just from what we saw from him down the stretch, he'll be more consistent in year 2. So those three sort of combined, I think, will make them better. And I also think the Ravens took a fairly large step forward that's worth acknowledging. I wouldn't call it on par with the Jaguars, but adding Brandon Carr to that secondary, adding Tony Jefferson as a safety there, even though he might play more box stuff, I just think, and Marlon Humphrey, their first round pick, I was a fan of. So a lot to like there. And actually, the guy I forgot, Brandon Boykin, also slot corner extraordinaire. They were the ones that got him. I hope he gets some play because I just think that secondary has made big strides.
I think Jefferson is definitely a nice add, and Humphrey is the other one that would be an interesting addition. I mean, I don't know that Brandon Carr is actually any good anymore.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's not bad. Again, this is like the splitting hairs thing. Well, he's not bad.
No, but he's not.
At this point.
Didn't make them significantly better. I mean, he allowed 101.9 passer rating into his coverage last year. Got beaten for 5 touchdowns, 800 yards. These are not good things.
Well, when you put it that way, when you use facts, Sam, come on. I'm living on pure emotion right now with these. I just think those two. I would actually put the Patriots a step ahead of Baltimore in terms of getting better, but I'd also put Jacksonville easily number 1. I think everything points to them having a good season, which means I'm going to be dead wrong about that.
Yeah, every time. They're almost like the Saints that way. They can make these additions that look great on paper and just doesn't happen.
All right, flip side of the coin. What's a good way to put this, Sam? Least improved? Worst? Most worst?
Declined
the most. There we go. See, this is why you're on the podcast too.
Yeah, it didn't seem that tricky. I mean,
it really does to me for some reason. All right, give me who declined the most.
It has to be Dallas. I mean, Dallas lost their secondary, like all of them,
yes.
Almost. They lost Morris Claiborne, who finally started playing well last year. If we'd taken him away in any other season, it wouldn't have been a problem. But last year, he actually showed the ability to be the guy they picked in the first round. Gone now. Barry Church, like you said, now in Jacksonville. Brandon Carr out of the door. Their corners are Anthony Brown and Nolan Carroll.
Orlando Scandrick too.
Yeah,
and then pray Nolan Carroll doesn't see the field.
And then you've got just a whole world of rookies that they hope will quickly get things so they can stop playing the guys they have to play at the moment.
That's the thing. I like their rookie picks, but
it's not
if you're relying on rookies to replace what those guys were giving them last year,
2018, 2019 Dallas secondary could look fine. The 2017 one will not.
Also, I do love how you just said that Brandon Carr not an upgrade, but then mentioned him for the Cowboys.
I'm just saying they lost a starter. Well, look, it's relative. Who are you replacing him with? Nolan Carroll is now starting, and Anthony Brown is now starting.
Okay. No, I get it. I understand. All right. I had written down Cowboys number 1. I had the Texans worth honorable mention. Obviously lost Boye, lost Quentin Demps as well at safety. I understand that their former first-round pick is going to be back healthy, whose name is Kevin Johnson, the cornerback for Vanderbilt. He's going to be back healthy and was hurt down the stretch last year. But just the way A.J. Boye played last year, out of this world in terms of how good he was and how much of a revelation he was. They're just going to miss that in the secondary, I think. I think they take a step back.
I believe Kevin Johnson was actually Wake Forest. You're going to have people hating it.
You don't know how often I mix those two up. I mean, there's the obvious color sort of black and gold. Yeah. It is Wake Forest. Apologies, Vandy people. All right. So that's that. Those are the least improved, most improved. Let's now get on to a little something. We're going to do a little different. We're going to rank the units in the secondary. So we're going to rank the top 5 cornerbacks teams and then the top 5 safety teams. Sam, break it off for us with the top 5 cornerback units, in your opinion.
This was tough because it comes down to what we were talking about earlier, whether the kind of the history of Denver and their collective ability trumps what we saw last year from the Giants. Last year, I think the Giants were significantly better. I think we've seen the Broncos be better in the past. I would lean towards the proven history. We'll go Denver 1, New York Giants 2. I really like now on paper that Jacksonville team at corner. I think like you said, the leap in Jalen Ramsey year 1 to year 2, what he was looking like by the end of the year, if assuming Boye plays to the same kind of standard, which is, it's definitely, it's not a given, but it's certainly possible. And then they just need to find a nickel, a guy that can actually hold that down for that to be a big thing. But I think they could really leap up. What was that? 3? 4.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You were supposed to prepare these.
I prepared 3. I don't do long lists.
Okay. Long list. We started 10, and then you said I don't do long lists. Prepare. I know. 5.
Then I went to 5. Now I'm a top 3 man. It's all about the podium. Once you get beyond the podium, nobody cares. We don't do participation trophies here.
I had those 3 teams as well. I had the Broncos, Giants. I had the Jaguars at 5, though. Number 3, I'll give you a little different name. Probably not on your radar, but the Los Angeles Chargers. I think they could have one of the best cornerback units in the league this year. I love Desmond King coming out. If you put him in the slot early on his career, Casey Hayward on the outside, Jason Verrett on the other side. I love that cornerback trio right there. I think they are playmakers. I think that's a secondary ripe for 10 to 15 picks.
Yep, that's not a bad call.
And then 4, Patriots. Talked about it earlier. Malcolm Butler slowly made a name for himself as one of the top corners in the NFL, and adding a guy whose name's escaping me at the moment.
Stephon
Gilmore. And then Eric Rowe, I like as a matchup sort of weapon, the way they deploy him. In terms of they have him guarding the larger receivers. He holds up well in that role. So I like those.
Another guy they have that I'd be curious in terms of second-year leaps is Cyrus Jones, who had a stinking rookie year. But I think
yes.
He's actually a talented player, and particularly as a nickel, I think he could be a really interesting sort of feisty nickel corner for them if he does get it in year 2.
Oof, he did have a bad rookie year, though.
It was terrible.
But I agree that I liked him coming out of Alabama. So, all right, on to the safeties. Sam, give us top 5.
Baltimore number 1. That addition to Tony Jefferson, I think, gives them the best safety duo in the league, with Eric Weddle, who we've kind of ranked as the best safety in the league for a while.
He's good.
I think Seattle is number 2. As much as I kind of poked holes in the safety duo earlier in this podcast, I think the Chancellor and Earl Thomas together are still a really elite combination. It's well balanced. It's just incredibly impressive, the stuff that Thomas in particular allows them to do from a schematic point. I think that's a really fantastic group.
Okay.
Who's my third?
Did you only prepare 2 this time?
I didn't. I had a third and I can't even find it. I'm going to have to ad-lib. Who's my third team?
Oh, Sam, you want me to go first here? You want me to go?
You go first, or you go again. I'll see if I can find my third team.
So I had the Seahawks at number 1. I just think in terms of the roles they play, they're both fantastic at it. Cam Chancellor is a box safety. Earl Thomas is deep safety. Now they're not pigeonholed into that. They don't just do that. But in those roles, they're both perfect for it. Perfect fits. But still, only I think why we put their secondary, why we're down their secondary, is that you can only do so much from the safety position. You still need 2 other cornerbacks that they just don't have at this point, which is why we're sort of down on them. So I don't think them having the number 1 safety tandem really impacts the fact that we're down on them as a whole unit. But number 1 safety group, Seahawks. Number 2, I went with the New York Giants. Now, the thing is, they don't even know, I'm not even sure if who's going to be starting across from Landon Collins.
My third team was the Giants
in terms of safety. But whomever it is, if it is in fact Andrew Adams or if it is Darian Thompson, I think they both look very good as rookies. And so I think that they could even roll out some three safety sort of looks where Landon Collins plays box linebacker. So I like what they have at safety there. And Landon Collins, in my opinion, the best safety in the NFL right now. I know you said Eric Weddle. It's Landon Collins for me. He just does so much from a run and pass perspective. Love him. Number 3, I went with the New England Patriots. I I just love the fact that Devin McCourty is, such a what's the word I'm looking for? Such a calming force on the back end. He just puts a cap on the defense. He legitimately does not make very many mistakes on the back end. At safety, was a great corner in his day. Could have, passed up a ton of money that by switching to safety. And the Patriots have probably been better for it because they didn't have to pay him that much. And he's now one of the best free safeties in the NFL. And then again, another team that kind of goes three deep. Patrick Chung's good in the box role. Good as a sort of slot cornerback, was not good in a deeper role, so they don't really play him there anymore. They have Duran Harmon for that when they go nickel dime. Duran Harmon, they re-signed over the offseason.
Yeah.
Again, another guy who's very sure on the back end. So another team with three options there at safety. Number 4, I went with the Ravens. It's hard to argue with Jefferson and Weddle. Jefferson has his sort of shortcomings in the coverage aspect, which is why I put them a little lower down this list. Eric Weddle, one of the best safeties in the NFL, but Jefferson, much better, much more of a force against the run than he is in coverage. So dinging them a little bit for that. And then at number 5, I went with the Kansas City Chiefs. I leaned very heavily on this list towards elite level play at one of the safety positions. Eric Berry can do it all at safety. Ron Parker, not anything special at the other safety position, but with Eric Berry, I think bumps them up into the top 5 here.
Yeah, I think those are pretty good. I agree. Yeah, the Giants was my extra team for what we talked about earlier. I think they're the one team that does go 3 deep at safety pretty well, whether it's Thompson or Adams at free safety. The Landon Collins thing as the best safety is interesting. I think he was definitely the most impactful safety last year. I find it difficult to reconcile being the best safety in the league with a guy who was proven to have limitations.
Boo.
Even when you can't play him deep, whereas you don't know that with Weddle or even
they don't play much. They play a lot of quarters and they play a lot of halves.
And that's the thing. And once you figure out what you do with him, he becomes just a force. But the idea that you're limited with what you can do with a guy it would rankle me if I'm talking about a guy being the best at his position. I guess you're really talking about 2 different positions, even if they're thrown into the same bucket of safety, I mean, the role that Earl Thomas and Landon Collins perform are completely different. I mean, they might as well be linebacker versus corner. They're just totally different jobs, but they're both called safety. So I guess if you think of it like that, it's fine. But if you want to throw them all into the same bucket, I would want a guy that can do all of them well, which probably precludes Landon Collins.
Well, Sam, consider yourself rankled because I'm saying Landon Collins is the best safety in the NFL. Limitations be damned. That's it.
Crazy talk.
That's just it. All right, that's all for us. Those are the coverage rankings. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back next week we'll start to get into, like I said, some preview stuff. What do we have up on the late week podcast, Sam, in terms of, grading preview stuff? Are we still on that?
I think we're still doing that, but we haven't yet decided what it is. Steve's back.
I think it's going to be, a little bit of a wrap up on the whole process, how we do it, that sort of thing. That'll probably be our last one. Then we'll move into, it's training camp start next week. The training camps are opening. Rookies will be reporting. So a lot to talk about on that front. Hope you guys enjoyed the off-season podcasts. Like I said, we'll be back with late week 1 and then back with you guys again next week. Have a good one.